cool. That was it. I just wanted you to know that we're gonna be we're starting. This is the start.
All right.
So, welcome,
Thank you.
welcome, Maren. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Parker.
I need to ask you before we begin.
Yeah.
Do you have any tea with you?
No, I have bubbly water.
Oh, bubbly water.
I know. I've been caffeinated today, so.
Okay, yeah. Don't overly caffeinate. I think that'd be worse.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Is the bubbly water flavored at all?
It is citrus, grapefruit, orange, and lemon.
Did you flavor it or?
No.
Oh. How do you know it's all those three things?
Because my daughter bought it.
Oh, it says on the package.
It says on the package.
Does it say citrus or does it say like grapefruit?
It says citrus, but then but then the details let you know the exact citrus content, whatever that is. If it's a real content of citrus, I don't
feel like they're picking and choosing their citrus fruits also. Like, aren't there other citrus fruits that exist?
Other than grapefruit, orange, and lemon?
Lime.
What else?
Pineapple?
Pineapple's a citrus
Not
fruit.
citrus? No, that's a question.
No, it grows in the ground. Does that make a difference? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Citrus is probably trees. Oh, this is the stuff I want to get into. This right here. These are the important questions we're asking right now.
No, and I have a biology degree and it's just completely insufficient right now.
I don't believe you. Yeah. You should be the expert on it. Well, okay. Before let's let the good people know who you are.
Okay.
I know who you are.
Yeah.
But this is for the people watching. So let's do our introductions. Let's do name, your pronouns, how you're feeling today, so your mood. And then we do let's do a fun question. I'm mixing with the format of the show, so this is how I'm wanting to start shows now. So do you want to start or do you want me to start?
You can start.
Okay, my name's Parker, but I go by the Anxious DM on this channel. My pronouns are he, him. I am feeling happy. I'm happy to be here with you, honestly. Like and it's been a calm morning. I haven't done anything like too busy. I've just done some light choring and I'm happy to be here now. I've got my chamomile tea, which is helping keep me calm. And yeah, I can't think of a fun question. Do you have a fun question?
Fun question is what would you like to, if you could build anything, what would you build? That could be answered many different ways.
Okay, if I could build oh man, if I could build anything, what would I build? Right now? Yeah. I would build a backyard hockey rink.
Whoa.
Yeah, like an ice rink in my backyard, and not like a covered ice rink, like an outdoor ice rink in my backyard. But I'd want to build it so that I could like have it out in the winter.
Yeah.
Or I could have it out when I'm using it, and then I could retract it when I'm not using it. So like instant freeze ice, and then instant like melted back up into whatever it comes from. That's what I want. Yeah, so Maren, how about you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay, so my name is Maren, and on the internet I'm found in various places as Primordial Love. And my pronouns are she, her. Today I'm feeling a little bit festive, even though I'm going to be working a lot in the next week and the holiday will not be the same. It still feels a little festive to have grocery stores full of cranberries and pomegranates.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I can even vicariously live through other people's grocery carts. Um, and I think, well, I live in this apartment that has really tall ceilings.
Yeah, it looks really
But
tall.
yeah, they just go up and
Oh my
up.
gosh, they don't stop. I thought there was a stop at some point. There's not.
No. So I think it would be interesting to build like some kind of a cube thing where I could have, I mean, because they're 14 feet tall. So I could have my
14, wow.
bed up higher and then underneath the cube have like an office.
Oh, like a loft office combination.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be awesome. Would you just have your bed on top, or would there be anything else?
Just the bed, lamps in the bed.
Lamps. Oh, you could have like hanging lamps like from above you. You could have like a mobile.
Cool.
Like you'd be a baby again.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be
Wow.
awesome to have like a solar system mobile like right above your
Yeah,
bed? That'd be
I
so cool.
know.
Uh,
Oh,
and
now I'm wanting it even more.
what would the inside of your
Yeah.
office look like?
What would the inside of the office look like? Oh, well, I definitely bring as much green in there as I could.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if the plants that could tolerate the lack of light and, you
Well,
know,
we have plants at work that sit inside all day and are somehow still alive. Like I don't understand it.
yeah, yeah.
Well, there is no natural sunlight on Unit 2, and
Mm.
they still live. I don't understand it. I don't have a biology degree.
Uh, so, but now after this conversation, I'm like looking over there, like "Oh, that would really be cool.
Yeah, I mean, you if you dream it, you can build it.
Oh, I need some power tools.
Yeah, that's D&D, by the way. What we just did right there is D&D. You just
Oh,
describe an imaginary thing that you want to happen. There's
hmm.
just some dice involved, but
Okay.
they're not necessary.
Uh, I just have like a little bike wrench. That's about all I have for tools and a hammer. That's about all I have. So I'm gonna need some more tools.
And your imagination.
Okay. Maybe there's somebody on TaskRabbit.
Task. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
never
build
used
me a cube.
TaskRabbit. I've never used TaskRabbit. Is it cool?
I have some friends who hate to put together IKEA, and
Oh
so
yeah,
there are
it's the
people on
worst.
TaskRabbit who will do that for you. Yeah, I have a kind of tall outside tree here that I'm thinking of finding somebody who will string lights on it for me.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, because it's yeah taller than my ceiling. So
I'll do that.
okay, do you have a ladder?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
You do?
I
Okay.
have a tall ladder actually.
Really? Okay.
Is it inside your house?
No, it's outside. It's
Oh yeah,
on the edge of the patio area. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know how would we get electricity to it.
I have a plug
Oh
outside.
yeah, we're good. Okay, there we go.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of getting lights in the tree.
Mm,
And I've
yeah.
gotten permission. So that's a big thing.
Oh, you have. Oh yeah.
Permission to string the lights.
You're
Yes.
in the money then. You're
I know.
set. No, I would love to do that. If you have the lights, I'll do it.
Uh-huh.
And
Oh,
but I will warn you, the Wilkinson clan has a tendency to injure themselves around the holidays. Like severely injure themselves. Like my dad fell off the roof of our house stringing up Christmas lights
yeah.
and shattered his heel, and then he almost cut his hand in half while sawing something last year. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, so I will warn you that I may hurt myself really really if history repeats itself.
Wow. Oh goodness. Huh.
Well, thanks for answering that question. Great question. I don't build much, honestly.
Hmm.
I just build with my mind. That's all I do.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I think baking is about as close as I get to building.
Oh yeah, to me baking is more like construction than cooking is. Cooking is like art to me, and baking
Hmm.
is like an architect, like
Hmm.
structurally sound thing.
Hmm.
And do you prefer baking over cooking? I can't remember.
Oh, either one. Yeah, I'll do either. Yeah, I'm gonna make some butternut squash soup later today.
Oh, nice.
Uh,
I just cooked with some butter squash last week, or and I wanted to do soup, and then I don't know why I didn't. I love butternut squash soup.
No, yeah.
What do you use for the base besides butternut?
Well, vegetable broth
Mm.
and coconut milk.
Oh, coconut milk. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like to put shallots and onions in there. And maybe my secret, I don't know. I haven't read it in a recipe. Red curry paste.
Oh, yeah, that sounds awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah. And vegan.
And it's vegan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does the red curry paste do for it?
It gives it zip.
Mm.
I
Is
mean,
it
sometimes I'll even put a little chili powder in there.
It's kind of fun with the coconut milk too, doing the curry paste. It's kind of like a curried soup. How much do
Mm.
you add?
Curry paste?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's all I don't measure.
To taste.
You know, you got your squash, and
Hmm.
then you got like this much onion,
Hmm.
and I don't know.
And this
Maybe
much
it's
shallot.
three. Oh, and garlic too.
Yeah.
I don't know, 3 tablespoons
Oh,
of
that's a
curry.
lot. Okay, it's pretty
Yeah,
curry-y then
yeah, and a can of coconut milk, and then just enough vegetable broth to make it all work.
to consistency, get it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Okay, maybe I'll
Hmm.
try that out. I need to go
Hmm.
buy. I need to go grocery shopping today. I was thinking of getting another butternut squash, so
Yeah.
I'll do
Well, good luck because the carts are full of cranberries and pomegranates.
it. But not
Also,
butternut squash.
it was, yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting how I think the colors of food change during the year, you know? Like fall
Mm,
is very much like a squash um coloring.
yeah.
And now we're into red. We're into red foods.
Yeah.
Pomegranates, cranberries.
When I lived in Japan, um, they very much eat seasonally, at
Oh.
least when I lived there, and also locally. And um, people are encouraged if they go to one part of Japan to bring back the persimmons from that part of Japan or whatever.
Oh, really?
So in the fall, when they start eating squash, I would always hear from my Japanese friends, it's very good for your eyes. Very good for your eyes.
Wow. Why?
Because it's orange, because it's got the beta carotene
Oh.
or whatever,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Vitamin, whatever, vitamin A. And, and so not only is it delicious, but it's also very good for your eyes.
Mm.
Yeah.
I've never thought about how I guess there could be certain benefits to food tied to their color, you know? Like
Yeah.
the vitamins that are produced.
Yeah.
Uh that's interesting. So what were some of like the seasonal foods that would happen in Japan? Like what do you remember
Yeah.
from seasonal
Well,
foods?
I mean, October was definitely persimmons,
Mm.
so we just came out of that season. And I mean, that's when they're the best, then they're fresh and yeah. And so this would be more squashes and things like that. Yeah, definitely. There's what is it? Mikans, mandarin
Oh
oranges
yeah.
have a season and berries have a season
Hmm.
and yeah. And then there's also the seasons of watching the cherry blossoms bloom, or the maple leaves change color. The they seem to honor the passage of seasons and and take the time to go and sit and look, at
Yeah.
things and yeah.
Hmm.
So
Um
there's probably seasons for mushrooms too, but I wasn't keenly aware of them. Yeah. Like we have chanterelles here,
a ton. Yeah, my friend just went hunting for chanterelles and got like a ton of mushrooms just from
Yeah.
walking along the coast, you know. And I had never had a persimmon until moving here. I had my first persimmon like last month. Um,
Uh-huh.
they're weird. I don't understand them.
Uh-huh. Well, the best ones I've had are in Japan, and
Oh,
I've
really?
had some here that I'm just been kind of underwhelmed. So
Are they native to Japan?
I don't know.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't know.
So what would they? So in Japan, what would they do to like celebrate the passage of time? Like, what were? Do they have any like rituals or like celebrations that kind of marked that changing of seasons sort of thing?
Um, hmm. I don't know if it's so seasonal. There's a national holiday each month,
Oh,
but
wow.
usually the holiday, yeah, so it's great. Everybody gets a day off. Like
That's
it's fun.
awesome.
Yeah. So, but usually that's tied to some kind of like the emperor's birthday or, like, there's a doll festival or I don't know. It's not necessarily the seasons,
Yeah.
but like the persimmons. So if you went over to a friend's house to visit a friend and you had tea, you would probably be served green tea
Mm.
with sliced persimmons like on a plate.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And it would be because it's seasonal and it's just part of, yeah, like celebrating all that.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And
Mm.
how long were you in Japan for?
3 years.
3 years. Wow. I didn't realize it was that long. It's a
Yeah.
long time. And
Yeah.
what were you doing there again?
Teaching English.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So how much Japanese do you know?
I used to know a lot more
Mm, mm,
because I left there like 30 years ago.
yeah.
So, yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's when would you use it, right? Like, I mean,
Right.
like, when
Yeah.
you're living in Portland,
Yeah.
I will say there is a greater presence of people from Japan here than in Utah, like a significant
Yeah.
amount more.
Yeah.
But that being
Well, and
said,
I love the Japanese garden. I was just up there yesterday. So,
I
yeah.
haven't been yet. I really need to go.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like the
Yeah.
Chinese garden or the Japanese garden more?
Japanese.
Okay. All right.
um so if you put my lights up, then I'll bring you to member hours with me, which is a lot quieter,
I have incentive now.
more mindful and meditative.
Mm,
Yeah.
I have
Uh-huh.
reason to go
Uh-huh.
and help you.
Uh-huh.
That's good because I'm very selfish and I don't just like helping people for free. So that's it would never have happened if you wouldn't have said that I would get some quiet hours in.
Yeah, I'm glad I know it's a transactional friendship here.
Yeah, which all my friendships are really. That's I think every friendship is built upon not on altruism, more on like narcissism. That's kind of I think what friendships. So I forgot to ask this part. I think what I'll do in the future is instead of just always doing a fun question to transition out of the warm up, we can do either we can have another question that we can ask. We can play a game, or you can tell a story.
Oh.
So do you have a preference on either of those?
Well, I am actually interested in this topic of dragons.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons, and I don't know why that word is even in the title of the game and what it has to do at all with magical creatures.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, okay, let me become an expert here real quick.
Okay.
Let me give you a little bit of background on my experience with the game, and that'll help me answer the question, I think.
Yeah.
So also be prepared to answer the same question. So
Yeah.
I've been DMing, which is dungeon mastering, and I've been running the game for about 2 to 3 years now. Oh, there's my dog. That's Iona. She sleeps next to me when I do these, and she has puppy dreams, and it's adorable. She's old though. So I've been DMing for about like 3 years. So there's been essentially 5 editions of the game Dungeons and Dragons, and the first of them coming out, you might know this as well, like they first started getting popular I think in the 70s and like the 80s.
Yeah.
So that was way before my time, like,
Yeah, I remember people playing it in college in the 80s.
yeah, I think it got popularized in the 80s, and then it got kind of demonified a little bit in the 90s. Um, yeah, because, I mean, to be fair, the term like dungeon and like dungeon master, those are all really weird terms,
Mm.
for someone that
Yeah.
hasn't played the game.
Hmm.
And there was this thought that it was Satan worshiping. And there was a lot
Wow.
of fear happening in the 80s and the 90s, and into the 2000s as
Unlike
well.
now, no fear now.
Yeah. I think it's easier to recognize what you're afraid of when you look back on things. When you're in it now, it's just, this is more, we're in an existential crisis. I think that's more what it is. Then they were looking to at least objectify their fear. Now we're like, oh no, it's just existence. That's what's terrifying. It's um so anyway, when it first came out, it kind of was based around this concept of Tolkien, Conan the Barbarian, like The Hobbit, I think it's called like the Dragon Riders of Pence or something like that. Have you heard of that book at all?
No.
Yeah, so just kind of this, like, if you think classic, we call it like Fantasyland. Like, so if you think like if there was a theme park called Fantasyland, what would it look like? That's
Yeah.
kind of where Dungeons and Dragons originally was set, in
Yeah.
Fantasyland. So the dungeons, that makes sense, right? You go into dungeons, you get loot, you explore. That was kind of the whole game. And DMs, dungeon masters, would create their dungeons, and
Mm-hmm.
they would become experts of those dungeons. And the
Yeah.
players had to like kind of compete against the DM to complete their dungeon. The dragons portion, um,
Yes.
you dragons are kind of like the biggest creatures in the game, like the most powerful creatures in the game, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
The race of dragons, like, they're not, a lot of creatures could be said to be just kind of like just beasts, so like if you're thinking of um like a display, like, essentially dragons are smart, they're powerful, they are cunning, they make plans, they're also narcissistic and vain, and they love greed, so they have hordes of wealth. um so yeah, they represent like a lot. And it's funny that you actually asked that, because I just played 2 weeks ago, and my friends and I ran my first ever dragon with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a weaker dragon. It wasn't this like super strong, but it was still pretty strong. Um, and I had a really cool introduction for it, and like there was a red herring, like there was a T-Rex first of all, and everyone's like, "Oh, we're gonna fight a T-Rex," and then a dragon came in, and they're like, "Oh, we're fighting a dragon, like that's what we're doing." The T-Rex was a red herring, and it was fun. The dragon could talk with them. The dragon could think and plan and react, whereas like a lot of creatures just don't. They're dumb, They just kind of like
Mm-hmm.
don't think a certain way.
Mm.
And they mopped the floor. I mean, they killed this dragon super easy. Like, didn't mess around. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so that's, I think there's my TED talk on dragons. What would you say you're like, from a non D&D perspective? What is your perspective of dragons, as well as living in Japan? That probably does something also.
Yeah. Um, well, I guess I have to out myself as having spent a lot of my life as a hospital chaplain.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people have asked me whether or not I believe certain things are real, including the big ones like God, smaller ones
Or
like,
whatever.
yeah. I mean, smaller ones like fairies and elves and, and dragons
Mhm.
and things like that. And so the concept of real and reality, I think that if it exists in the human psyche, then it is real. So
I
yeah,
would I mean, as somebody who plays D&D, I can completely understand that. Like when we tell stories of playing D&D, we don't talk about it as if it was something we made up. We talk about it as if it really happened because it did.
yeah, yeah. So if it's in the human consciousness, if it's in our imagination and or our lived experience, when you think about dragons and all the different, really different cultures in the world that affirm the presence of dragons,
Yeah, true.
then you're like, well, I mean, it has so much concrete reality to it then.
Yeah, I mean, it's existed in Anglo-Saxon culture. It's done in like Eastern Asia. It's been in like Southern America. Like it is the concept of
Norway.
dragons is pervasive. Norway as well. I didn't even know about Norway.
Hmm.
What is it like in like Scandinavia, Norway area?
I think very similar.
Mm.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
Dragons are very similar.
I
And
guess this is a question. Somebody who hasn't played D&D, if
yeah,
you met a dragon in your life, uh, or how about this? Let's say hypothetically speaking, would you ever fight a dragon?
sure.
Why does that appeal to you? I'm very interested.
Well, I mean, if I had to, I would.
Okay, had to is tough. So okay, so let's play a little bit of D&D. So
Okay.
if you
Oh, do
if
I get to choose to in D&D? Is that the thing?
yeah, you can, I mean, you can choose
Mm.
whatever you like. So if you were standing in a room in a dungeon, you're in a dungeon,
Yeah.
and you had seen this T-Rex kind of like burst up in like this ball of like crackling thunderous energy, and it like roars, and then a dragon comes by, and you like are fighting the T-Rex for a bit, and then a
Yeah.
dragon comes by and starts like eating the T-Rex essentially.
Huh.
Uh what would your reaction be to that? And it talks like, it says stuff like, oh, like oh, you've already taken care of my dinner for me, like thank you so much.
You mean that's what the dragon says?
The dragon said that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, good. I'm glad. I hope the dragon's full.
So would you fight it though at that point?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
You
Why
know,
not?
why not?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, if I thought I needed to, uh, if it was essential for someone else's uh safety
Mm,
or my own, you
yeah.
know, yeah,
See, now this is interesting because what my party did, just I'll do this quick because I want to. I do have somewhere I want to go with this, but like,
yeah, I
what
got
my
something in my head
oh
too.
cool, my
Yes.
what my party did was they ended up one person fought it first, so like one person went after it. So like in D&D, you usually are playing in a group of friends. So
Yeah.
if one of the party members, like one of your friends, attacked the dragon first, and then it started attacking back, would you join in the fighting or would you refrain still? Because it's
Huh.
now attacking your friends.
Yeah, then I would probably join in.
Wow,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, that's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
So, what does this
Uh,
like why do dragons intrigue you? Like why is that an interesting symbol or whatever it is to you? Pervasiveness.
well, I think it's like what I was saying about an extension of the human imagination and consciousness. I think that, a lot of people have written about about the use of myth, and how we understand ourselves on the hero's journey or in an epic tale, or
Mm,
how we place ourselves in a story.
yeah.
And so, and a lot of times that's done using uh fantastical language and the presence of creatures that we say we don't necessarily see
Yeah.
in reality. So I think that there are all sorts of mythical creatures. It fascinates me that the dragons are known
Yeah. Yeah.
across many continents and different cultures. So that really fascinates me. I have never studied them, so I don't really know, exactly what people think of them. Um, I mean, Miyazaki has had put dragons in his animation too, which they seem to be kind of guardians
Yeah.
in a way. But so what I was thinking of actually, like I don't know, to continue down the rabbit hole is so there's this great movie, The Fisher King. Have you
Mm.
seen The Fisher
No, I've
King?
never heard of it.
So it's starring Robin Williams
Oh,
and his first name is Jeff. Can't think of, maybe I'll think of his last name. Um,
I'm gonna
it's
look it
hard.
up.
I mean, it's an old movie. So, but it's like spoiler alert. Like, do I give away? Like, but so
Jeff Bridges and is
Jeff
playing
Bridges.
Jack Lewis. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Robin Williams.
It came out in 91. I think you can spoil. I think it's probably
Okay, but I'm
okay.
gonna spoil it for you. But
Oh, that's
uh,
fair.
he's a person who sees this fierce looking red knight. He has
Mm.
these like delusions,
Yeah.
of seeing this red knight on a horse, and he's scared and intimidated by this red knight that and so it has him kind of uh reduces his life to living kind of underground and houseless and on the margins. And Jeff Bridges plays this like radio DJ who's I don't know, having some kind of egoic crisis or
Mm.
something.
Yeah.
And but really this red knight, which almost looks like a dragon in a way. I mean, this
Oh, interesting.
spikes coming up, and just like every time it comes onto the scene, it's so intimidating, like something that could kill you.
Mm.
Um, but what the story is really about is PTSD and trauma.
Interesting.
Yeah. And this red knight is the Robin Williams character's greatest fears,
Wow. Hmm.
manifested in a vision of something terrorizing like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you hear this phrase like of slaying our dragons, right? Like that's an idiom that exists.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting you say like it's a red. Remember the color red because in D&D each of the dragons have different like personality types based on the color that they are.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't necessarily adhere to that. I think it's kind of dumb, but like it's interesting that there are definitely certain ideas and concepts that like for example like fear being red, like yeah, that makes sense. Like red is caution, it's like stop, right? Like that's a stop sign.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to kind of pivot a little bit. It sounds like that like you talked about stories, we've talked about symbols with like dragons.
Yeah.
And in this movie, those obviously exist. Like there's symbolism as well as
Yeah.
mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think the role of storytelling or symbology is in mental health,
Mm.
either currently or in the past? What would you say? Because we both work in mental health. We
Right.
see it all the time. So,
Yeah.
would you say storytelling has a place within the realm of mental health?
Yeah, definitely.
How so?
Um, well, I think that everybody has their their own understanding of themselves.
Mm.
And just being able to tell that to somebody else, and have it heard and appreciated. Uh, it, I don't, it's not going to, I mean, I don't want to say it makes mental illness go away,
Yeah.
but what it does, I think, is connects people.
It makes the stigma go away.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because especially like when what I've learned, that is an awesome insight. I love that because like I've been
Mm.
realizing that more and more, especially as I've been working with people with more acute like psychosis and schizophrenia. Like you realize that you can't listen to the words they're saying
Right.
because like they just your frame of reference isn't what theirs is. So you're essentially speaking two different languages.
Yeah.
But you can understand the feeling behind the words. Like
Hmm.
you can understand what they're trying to convey
Yep.
with what they're saying, even if you can't understand every word of it. And I
Absolutely.
I agree. I think it's that connection that
Yeah.
is like the most important thing.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So so how do you feel like storytelling helps with that connection?
Um, well, it's their lived reality.
Mm,
And so if a person is having what we think are delusions, and we continue to say that they are, or somehow treat the delusions like, again, they're not like in the whole realm of possibility for human imagination and consciousness, then I feel like we were denying their story, their their understanding of what they're experiencing in the moment,
mm,
and because, I mean, they're not the first person to have a delusion about the devil. They're not the first person to have a delusion about being, a historical,
yeah,
figure.
yeah.
It's not the first time it's happened.
Or being
It's
an animal, they could be not even human.
right.
Yeah.
It's in the pantheon of storytelling.
Mm,
And so, what I'm interested in is then like, well, what are they trying to tell with this story? Because Robin Williams' character in this movie is trying to get uh, relief from the fear of the Red Knight, you
oh,
know. And once he brings Jeff Bridges into his story, then he's no longer alone in it. And Jeff Bridges is not this, like, he doesn't he doesn't really judge much about it. He's got his own brokenness, in
yeah.
the storyline. Um, and so you can let the story play out, because otherwise you're just kind of like a record would skip,
Yeah.
and you're just going to repeat it again and waiting for somebody to hear my story, and then you're just going to repeat it again. And I think that there's a way of allowing the story to have its arc and maybe even a conclusion,
Hmm.
to work through whatever it is that the story is trying to work through inside that person.
Huh.
So
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that. It kind of is just like I like that as well. It's like the story needs to be told to have it have less like that's the thing is with this character, right? Like when I'm sure I'm not sure, but I would assume like if they're going around telling people, they see this red knight and people aren't believing them, like you have a couple options. Like you either just start mistrusting everybody else because they
yeah,
can't see it, or you have to just ignore what your senses are telling you, like
yeah.
and until you get somebody that will truly believe you or listen, like
Hmm.
that's kind of when you get that solidarity, that connection,
Hmm.
and now you're sharing a story together essentially. Whereas you
Yep.
you were a main character surrounded by villains, now you at least have like another
Yeah.
character that's an ally.
Yeah. Like in the Harry Potter series, Harry's having all these nightmares and flashbacks, PTSD from his mother being murdered and, and things like that. And I don't think it's until he starts these one-on-one conversations with Dumbledore that he gets to start to work through.
He goes to therapy.
Trauma. He goes to therapy because there's somebody there who absolutely validates that Voldemort is, who he is, and that there might actually be a way for the story to have an arc and a conclusion. And so I think it's so hard for Harry when Dumbledore dies then, because it's like, how do I've lost this person who knows my story. I mean, and luckily the whole friendship arc of Ron and Hermione is strong enough that, he can continue the arc of his story with them without Dumbledore. But I think as far as like working through Harry's trauma and loss and even his like sense of purpose in life,
which is huge. I mean, I think we're all pretty much eternally searching for a sense of purpose until we reach an enlightened state, like that's kind of what we're, and the irony being, of course, if your purpose is to be enlightened, you will never attain it. Like that's kind of how it goes. And I also,
enlightenment is as real as dragons.
Yeah, there you go. That's it, isn't it? And as well with Harry, he does, I think his story evolves really well. It starts with an authority figure, somebody he trusts with more power and understanding that it can introduce him to this brand new world. Then it goes to people who are going through a similar thing. So peers, his friends, Hermione and Ron, and ultimately it has to, and even family, with, oh my gosh, Sirius. But eventually what it comes down to in the final books is he has to do it with himself. Like he has to do it alone, essentially. And that's cool. Like, I think we all go through moments of that,
Yeah.
And we
it's
just
a classic hero's journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Even Jesus made that journey,
Yeah. He had to do things on his own, He had the Garden of Gethsemane, like, had all sorts of things.
Yep. Yeah. I wanted to say too about psychiatry.
Just in general, just about psychiatry in general,
I think that we're just so afraid of the delusion.
Yes.
And we think it's like we think it's like high blood pressure.
Yeah.
And we got to get rid of it. We got to get rid of it. And I think that empathy towards the delusion and the need to tell that story, or just to not have it be thought of as a delusion.
Yeah. It's the perception. Real. It's the perception of the delusion that causes the delusion to be so stressful for the individual.
Yeah.
Like, there are cultures that accept delusions and they don't, like, schizophrenia doesn't exist where they are simply because they don't like, they don't believe it exists.
You see things in non-ordinary reality. Well, we're going to hook you up with this shaman.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly.
So this 11-year-old starts hanging out with the shaman.
Yeah. Like sometimes they're like, you've been touched by God or like some higher power. Like, we need to, like, you are a treasure to us, like,
because you have that second sight or whatever it is. Yeah. So, and instead we have over-medicated people who are still living in the fear stage of their story, or whatever, and then they're further separated and from their families, and then the comorbidities that come along with it, including drug use, and it's just
for sure. So if you were to see this arc out of mental health, systematic mental health, wherever we are right now, if you were to see it to a conclusion, what would this conclusion look like? Like, what would it feel like? And what would it look like essentially in your world?
Yeah. I mean, it would probably, unfortunately I worked in a hospital and, so I've never seen a full arc of someone's story, really, because we always have them in the acute stage.
Well,
But
maybe you have, but you just don't
well,
know it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it involves being there in the story with them.
Hmm,
But then and maybe this happens in D&D, I don't know, but you have options in your story.
true.
And so being a person who could start to present plausible options within someone's story, like in this movie The Fisher King, you know, for like how could he defeat the Red Knight?
Yeah.
And what is and without giving people the script
Yeah.
of their story, but instead helping them to um you know, create it in a way that makes sense for them,
Yeah.
so that there are certain things, and we also don't know what they want to learn or accomplish by doing their story.
Yes.
And I mean, who knows what they're trying to figure out because of the language that they're putting to whatever kind of, you know, mental health crisis they're having. So I think if you could be there with a person in a way that was supportive,
Mm.
but maybe also a little bit guiding, helping them to kind of naturally guide themselves towards what would make sense.
Yeah, yeah, it's more person centered, and going going back to like the medication thing as well, like um with like as somebody who has benefited from taking medication, like
Mhm.
I feel like when I started taking my anxiety meds or the current medication I'm on, that was
Mhm.
when I was like, oh, I can do something about these feelings I have,
Right.
whereas like everything I tried before, I wasn't able to.
Yeah.
But the fact is that I was able to say, like, when a medication wasn't working for me, I was like, I don't like this. I don't want to take this. Let's
Mhm.
try something else.
Yeah.
And that was big because, like, if I had had a doctor that had just been like, this is the medication you can take, this is the only one, there's no other option, I would have been like, I'm not going to take it. Like,
Yeah.
if I don't like how it makes me feel,
Right.
I'm not going to take it. So I like what you're saying. Like, medication is certainly a powerful and useful tool that we have,
Yeah.
but it's not the only tool that we have. Like, we can't discount even just the simple human connection.
Yeah. Yep. Well, yeah, and I think medication could help somebody get to a point where they could connect.
Yes, yeah, because when I was so depressed that I literally couldn't like function, like I spent 3 days in a closet, like that was how depressed I was. And it was like, and one of my best friends, like he brought me food, and
Wow.
he couldn't, because he couldn't do anything for me. Like
Wow.
it wasn't his fault, like he
Yeah.
tried to listen, he tried to talk, but
Wow.
he couldn't, because I wasn't able to express myself in a way that he could understand.
Hmm. Yeah.
But
Mhm.
once I like got my shit figured out, like, and I'm not figured out. Like, let's establish, I have a lot going on. There's a lot of problems here, like any anything that anybody says, they're like, oh, this guy has no idea. Yes, you're right. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I recognize that. Like, but I do know that if you would compare who I am today to who I was 10 years ago, like,
Yeah.
I feel a lot more self-efficacious than I did back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
And medication played a huge role, but also human connection played a huge role.
Hmm.
So what would you say are as somebody who may be listening that like wants to like knows someone that might be going through a hard time or might be going through some mental health issues? You talked about empathy, but what would you say are like tools that the average person could use to help people know that like they do care about them, that they feel connected? Like, how do you develop those connections, and how do you flirt or foster those?
Hmm. Uh, I think, well, for some reason, the four agreements just popped into my head
Oh yeah.
because Don Miguel Ruiz says, don't take anything personally.
Mm,
And I think that that's really hard to remember, that a person is not at their best. And so the way that they're interacting with you when they're ill is not about you.
Yeah.
Um, so you take care of yourself. But yeah, remember that they wouldn't be doing what they're doing or saying what they're saying or acting the way they're acting necessarily. I mean, outside of like some really strong personality disorders,
Yeah,
maybe,
sure,
like,
sure.
but just, depression and anxiety and things like that. Like, it's not, it's an illness, and it's not about you. So to really work hard on not taking it personally,
Yeah.
I think is probably one of the best things you can do.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I like what you said also, like about being present in the moment with somebody. I think,
Mhm.
when you truly feel connected with somebody, you'll be with them, good or bad, like,
Yeah.
and being aware and present of that. And I guess I should even mislabel that, like, not calling what they're doing good or bad, just saying, like, just noticing what they're doing and being aware of it, and just noticing how it makes you feel, trying to be aware of how they're feeling. And you obviously can't predict how they're feeling, but you can at least try to be cognizant of it, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I like not taking it personally. I think that's my anxiety's name is Fred, and whenever I do something that I'm just like, yeah, that was Fred. Like, oh man, that guy. Like, Parker's not crazy, but Fred's crazy. Like.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, that's really beautiful, and I do think it's hard to overstate how important human connection is when
Yeah.
talking about mental illness.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
always think of that Harvard study that says that, like, how we qualify our social relationships is a huge predictor in our happiness level.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they say it's the number one predictor, more than money, more than like social standing or anything. It's how tightly connected we feel with other people.
Yeah.
Even just one person. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm.
Any
Yeah.
so any additional thoughts on anything, or any questions or
Hmm.
concerns? Bold statements.
uh, oh, so much. I think that because I spent a long time as a hospital chaplain, um, and I was talking with people who are experiencing mental illness from usually a spiritual perspective.
Mm,
And so I really think that it's important to nurture your spiritual life. Uh, I think it's really important to, like, as much as you can, eat nutritious food and move your body also for your mental health. But I think that having a sense of, and the story that we've been talking about fits into this, but making meaning, how you make meaning out of life, what it is that you value, what's important to you, and really being intentional about nurturing those parts of your life continuously, and returning to them like there's some kind of touchstone, and building inside of yourself some kind of a home that is really well known and serves you well. Feeling so, and then connecting to things, and connecting to, if you believe in God, or a spiritual community, or nature, or music, or whatever it is, like, I think mental illness can really isolate people a lot. And I think that actually research shows that, like, therapeutic relationship with a psychologist or a therapist is probably the best way to
yeah.
recover, but and medication has a role. And I would argue that you really also need the spiritual piece, because we don't, I don't know if we always want to be seen as embodying an illness.
Mm,
I think a person with an illness is so much more than the illness.
yeah, for
And so
sure.
that so much more part is the spiritual part. It, how we are relating to the world around us and how we are understanding ourselves within that world, beyond psychology. So,
Yeah, I love that. And as somebody who has identified with their illness at times of my life, like I've been like, oh yeah, I'm anxious or I'm depressed, like making those a part of my identity.
mhm,
Realizing, yeah, that might be a part of me, but that's not my entire part of me, like
right.
my consciousness, whatever that is
Yeah.
something greater than myself, whatever that is, like
Yeah.
so I love what you said. I think you're right. I think like this need for spirituality, whether that's in the form of something organized or unorganized, just being a belief greater than yourself is
Mhm.
huge. I think that's so huge.
Well, and I've met a lot of people who told me they don't believe in anything,
Yeah,
which I'm like, that's actually not true.
it's impossible.
Yeah. You're already believing in a whole bunch of things,
you
just to be able to walk around the world.
you wouldn't still be here if you weren't
Right.
believing in something.
Yep. Yeah. So what I like to say though is it's really awesome if you are thinking consciously about your beliefs
Yeah.
to at least believe in your own goodness.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And that's something great, and even that is something greater than yourself, because the amount of good that you do from one act, you will never see the entirety of it. Like
Right.
I think the movie Pay It Forward does a pretty good job of like showing how
Hmm.
one simple act can carry on and on and on.
Right.
Of course, the
Yeah.
the ending is sad, but you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, can I just take something from the headlines? I hope it's not too controversial,
Yeah.
but so uh Kyle Rittenhouse
Mm-hmm.
is a teenager,
Yeah.
and regardless of how this all went down, I know he's in his story somewhere,
Mm.
and the challenge he's probably going to have to
Yeah.
think of himself as a good person.
Yeah, for sure. As a teen, I mean,
Because
as a young kid too, like
yeah,
it's
because two
tough.
people died.
Yeah.
So, just take away the all of it. Even though I totally believe context makes a
Sure.
big difference.
100%.
If we just take out the context and all the politics around it, and just look at him as, a
Yeah.
teenager, and how is he going to write his story now so that he could believe, you know,
Yeah.
in something.
Sure. No. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and
it just seems monumental. It's like climbing Everest. I really feel for him.
yeah, for sure. And that's I think, I mean, that to me I think is kind of like what empathy is, right? Is empathy is putting yourself in somebody else's shoes,
Yeah.
no matter how hard it may be to do so.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
that like I mean that's what D&D is. Like that's what Dungeons and Dragons is
Mm.
essentially you create a character that is not you, you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and now you have to act as this character for 4 hours a week, like, and so you have to now think like, what does
Mm.
this person care about, or
Right.
what do they fear?
Mm-hmm.
Like who do they care about?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as a dungeon master, as somebody running the game, you have to basically think of that constantly because you're playing. You could play 10 different characters in one session, and you
Yeah.
just have to like switch really quickly to be like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what am I like? Why am I doing this? What is the purpose and everything? So like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if even if you take like, and I'm gonna say this is as diplomatically as I think I can say it, even if you take somebody that is viewed as being like as a DM, you still have to play the villains in your story.
Yeah.
Like you have to play the bad guy, and sometimes you do it as players.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think if we could take and you know, you have to either every villain is like the hero of their own story, you know, and I think you can look at that selfishly, but I think you can also look at it compassionately. And I think you can say, yeah, like in their mind, they're trying to do the best they can, no matter what the perception of their like how I perceive what they're doing. They're just trying to do the best they can, like,
Right.
and it's hard. It's not easy to do, and it hurts, and
Mm.
sometimes it's impossible. But it doesn't make it less important to try, I think.
Hmm. But it's so interesting because I think that in Buddhism and the idea of reincarnation and the idea that we come into this body in this lifetime and are already given our narrative in a way
Yeah,
because we are given our parents and our culture and the circumstances into which we are born,
yeah,
then it is kind of like if you can get that meta awareness of yourself and think, oh, now I'm going to play out this story,
yeah,
even though this is who I am,
yeah,
who I was born into being. And how, if you can consciously, with some intent and empathy, play out your story,
yeah,
yeah. I also think that what you're saying about having empathy is so important. I feel like that's why we're having so many troubles in the United States, because we cannot put ourselves in someone else's shoes. I will never be able to completely put myself in someone
no,
else's shoes,
no, you never will.
but to try to understand them,
Yeah.
you know.
And this is why I actually in the book that I told you, I think I told you about it, the climate or the field
Yeah,
guide to climate change anxiety or climate anxiety.
yeah,
And
yeah.
she actually makes a case against empathy, which I find fascinating. Like she says that empathy usually leads to burnout, because
Oh,
you're literally taking another person's emotions on you.
oh.
So she makes the case for compassion. So
Mhm.
rather, which I think honestly, I think when people use the word empathy, a lot of times they're actually talking about compassion. So I think it's
Mm,
just a semantical difference because
yeah,
you're rather than like taking on that person's emotions, you're trying to understand them with curiosity and intent, like you're talking about,
yeah,
and not necessarily agreeing with or disagreeing with, but just trying to understand the best you can.
yeah,
And when you truly have that mindset, it's non-judgmental because you want to try to understand it. So it's inquisitive and understanding, not like not feeling it and not taking it on and not burdensome or exhausting, you know. It's invigorating.
hmm, yeah. Well, to validate this woman's point in this
Yeah.
book, also further validate it. I once went to a training when I was a chaplain that was on compassion fatigue.
Oh yeah,
And so then
interesting.
I went to my Buddhist teacher and I said, we're doing this thing and they're calling it compassion fatigue, you know.
Wow, that's interesting, huh?
And he said that's impossible.
Wow, wow, that is interesting, huh?
Because if you actually have compassion, it's infinite.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas,
So
see,
he
I
said,
think I think empathy fatigue is real. I wonder if you asked him
mm,
what about empathy fatigue. I wonder what he would
yeah,
say.
yeah. Because within Buddhism, there's a perspective that's helpful. It's the joining of compassion and wisdom, because with wisdom, you remember the impermanence of things. You remember that everything is connected. I mean, you just kind of some of the basic Buddhist teachings that give you this perspective on, we don't live forever. And, every person has this inherent worth to them and everything is connected. So I'm having this mental construction I have about this person and the way they should be behaving or whatever should be happening in this scenario. Like, you know, I'm helping them. They should be happy. I shouldn't be getting burnout here.
True. Yeah, that's a good
You know,
point.
like that mental construction that I'm making is lacks wisdom.
Yeah.
And so when you have the compassionate heart and then the wisdom together, then that's probably the best scenario for how you can serve the world.
I love that. And just to add one thing really quick, I just think like the reason I'm making this channel and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to reach out to people that give themselves to others and help them understand that it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to hurt yourself to help others. Like we can all lift each other up.
Yeah.
And so like I'm speaking to the dungeon masters out there, the people who give their time and effort, but I'm also speaking to the people that work in mental health, like our coworkers. We see so many of them burn out, like, and it makes sense. And just like, if we can do anything to help the people that are helping others, like that, I would love that. Like that's why I like whenever at work, you know, try to talk to everybody. Like, doesn't matter who they are, just try to talk to everyone, try to form connections with everybody, because like, that's what it's about, is supporting each other.
I used to, when I was working in it's kind of like a chaplain academic setting where chaplains are learning clinical pastoral education. And I used to tell the chaplain interns that they cannot sustain their work if they're not in the moment somehow taking care of themselves. And so sometimes in the moment, if they can have the awareness, just to internally name whatever it is they're feeling in the moment, you know, like being in a room where someone is malodorous is really challenging. And whether it's mental or, you know, medical health. Being in a room where someone really smells can just that simple thing can challenge your compassion. And so if you're sitting in there and it's malodorous, noticing to yourself that that's hard for you. And having self-compassion in the moment without saying anything else and still listening to the other person, but you have self-compassion in the moment with noticing that that's hard. It's hard to do. And just naming that and honoring that as it happens in the moment for yourself. Or I've been in situations where chaplains have to stand a lot. And so sometimes I've just been aware of like, oh, my body's like feeling really fatigued right now because I've been standing for like 45 minutes, you know?
Interesting. Yeah.
So, but just, even though I can't necessarily do anything about it, like I can't remove myself from the malodorous person. I can't, you know, it's going to be a little while longer till I can sit down. But if you're taking care, at least in acknowledging what's happening with you physiologically or emotionally, you know, or cognitively or whatever it is, and just recognizing that within yourself so that you feel like you're paying attention to yourself. I think it's a good way to care for yourself doing the work that we do.
I love that. I think you're right. I think all compassion starts with self-compassion.
Yeah.
I think you're 100% right.
Yeah.
Well, I would be remiss to not ask if you have a little bit of time to play a game as a recreation therapist. But if you don't, you can say no and we don't have to do one.
What's the game?
Well, that's the thing, is we have to make up our own game.
Oh, okay.
So we both will come up with an idea for a game, or we're just gonna make a quick game, but it has to be fast. It has to be like a short game, not a long game.
Oh,
so is there any game that you particularly like or love?
That I like or love?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I like playing frisbee.
Frisbee. Yeah, so we'll do like a verbal frisbee of some sort, or
okay.
or let's think. What could we do with Frisbee over virtual meeting?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like you could be like Quidditch and you're trying to get it through the ring.
Okay, cool. So we're
Or
playing
like frisbee
Quidditch.
golf, like frisbee golf.
Yeah, and how can
Yeah.
we play that us two right now?
Oh my goodness.
We could like I have like dice. We could involve dice somehow, or we could just do like verbal stuff. Or oh, here's what we could do. Okay,
Okay.
so we play Quidditch. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's 3 goals in Quidditch, right?
Okay.
Left, right, and center.
Yep.
So one person is going to shoot the ball or the frisbee,
Uh-huh.
and they will think left, right, or center.
Oh, okay.
And then the person defending has to think left, right, or center.
Uh-huh.
And so we'll do left, right, and center. And so if we both, so which one's left for you?
Well, this is my left.
Okay, so if I put up, this is my left. I think I actually can't tell which one that
It's
is.
an L when you're looking at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the offense, so you'll be offense first, and you're gonna choose which goal you're shooting for, left, right, or center.
Okay. Okay.
I, as defense, am going to choose left, right, or center.
Uh-huh.
And you're going to shoot it 3 times. And if I choose the same one as you, I block it.
Okay.
Okay?
Wait, so and then how do we know?
We'll go 1, 2, 3, and then we'll both put up left, right, or center.
Okay.
Okay? And if the defender matches the one that you chose, then they block it. If it goes in the other 2, you score.
Okay.
Okay? Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. So you're on offense first. Okay?
Okay.
So you'll choose left, right, or center. We'll go 1, 2, 3. We'll go on 3.
Okay.
All right, ready?
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3. Dang it! That was right for you?
Right.
Okay, 1 point for you. Okay. Now it'll be. Let's have you go. Let's have you go 3 times, and we'll see how it goes. So left, right, or center.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Dang it! Okay. Whew, I gotta block one. Here we go. Last one. Okay, left,
Okay.
right, or center. Last one.
Yep.
1, 2, 3. Yeah! Unfortunately, you still won because you scored 2. I only blocked 1, but there you go.
It's a little bit like this.
It was very rock, paper, scissors. But the advantage goes to the attacker because you actually have 2 places you can score, not just
True.
the one.
True.
There's no tie. There's no tie in it. So
True.
well, since you won,
Yes.
you win a prize, and that prize is anything you get to promote yourself in whatever way you want on this platform. So now that people know how amazing you are at imaginary Quidditch, it's important that they know where they can find out more about you, I think. So if you have anything to plug or anything to self-promote, this is your chance to do so.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, like I said, I'm known on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook.
Now you're famous on TikTok. You're viral.
I know. I got one video that's got 1,000 views now. And I'm also on Facebook. I'm known as Primordial Love, which is, if you go to my website, which is primordiallove.com, you can read about why it's primordial love. But it has to do with my concept of the universe.
Just something small, just the universe. That's it.
Yeah. So I am currently transitioning, I think, from acute care work to one-on-one counseling. And so I can also be found on Psychology Today, and you can read about me there. I'm probably most interested in working with people who are maybe moving out of religion, but wanting to make meaning and have understanding in their lives. And I'm interested in working with people who might be experiencing changes and transitions and losses and things like that, but don't necessarily feel like they want to do that in the context of exclusively it's like psychology, but more conversation like we're having, where you can pull in myth and you can pull in Buddhism and you can talk about Harry Potter, but because I'm really interested in people being able to write their own stories, to have a life that feels like it's meaningful and full of integrity. And I don't know what that life would be for people. I don't have any answers. But I think it's the exploration, and we're certainly in Oregon, we are very much we're on the road to being very post-religion here in Oregon. For sure. Not the rest of the world. There's places in the world
a different kind of religion, I'd say.
Yeah. Yes, it's kombucha.
Yeah, it's just filled with like baristas and
yeah. So but just how do we create a sense of community and have meaning in our lives in a post-religious world, when religion is often the cultural center for those kind of things? And so just kind of building your own story. Yeah, I guess.
Very cool.
Yeah. So,
well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It was this is not the last time we'll have this conversation like this. We basically do this after work every day. So I honestly, like, anybody watching this, like, I just honestly highly encourage you to check out what Maren's doing, because if you want to have talks like this, go talk to Maren. Like, you are a wonderful person, and I'm so happy you got to come on and do this.
Thank you. Well, you're a wonderful host.
I'm still learning, but I just have I have good guests. That's what it is.
Oh, okay.
Well, thanks, Maren.
You're welcome. Thanks, Parker.